The curse is over. Let's go. After what, 6 straight losses during KFS watch parties, the Knicks finally pull off a win. Shout out to everyone that joined KFS over at T Squared Social down in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So I could not be there in person. I was there in spirit. I'm sure it was a great time for all. And the Knicks came out with a victory, which to me, just feel good about everyone that showed up, to Andrew and John and the KFS crew that have been going to these things and seeing a lot of losing. They finally see a win that for a little bit was a bit hairy. You know, there was, I'm sure all of us felt at some point in that third quarter, like, is this going to be that letdown game after a tough road trip, a tough turnaround? But the Knicks pulled it off in the end with smothering defense and absolutely sublime play by their role players. And I kind of just want to start right there because since Jalen Brunson came on board, it's been a lot of him just lifting this team up. He's done it with his play, which obviously speaks for itself. He is going to be an all-NBA player this year. He has every right to be in a conversation to be as one of the 10 best, most impactful players in the entire NBA. He has picked this team up time and time again with his scoring, with his ability to just be there when this team needs him. And for the first time in a while, he needed someone else to pick him up. And the Knicks role players, led by Deuce McBride, Dante DiVincenzo, Isaiah Hartenstein, and then Josh Hart in the second half of that game, they picked him up. Jalen Brunson went 7 of 24 from the field. I thought that he really did not perform well against how the Nets, and credit to them. I mean, they varied their coverages up on these high pick and rolls. There was a lot of Nick Claxton switching onto him. There was a lot of hedging, a lot of drop. Brunson really didn't handle that well. He didn't get good looks. The 7 of 24, I thought, yes, he missed a few shots that probably he makes more times than not. But in the end, to me, I thought the Nets played an absolute great defensive game against him. Credit to Kevin Ollie for coming up with a really great game plan to slow him down. And you just wondered how the Knicks are going to generate offense. And through most of the game, it was really Deuce McBride just making shots. 6 of 12 from the three-point line. Another just phenomenal game from him. Slowed down Cam Thomas, played the entire game. I mean, we just to do that time and time again, to play this level of minutes, to play against some of the best offensive players on that end and guard them, make shots, just phenomenal. So he obviously performed well through most of that game, but they needed someone else to sort of take the reign offensively. And it was Dante DiVincenzo. I mean, his performance inside the arc, 8 of 11 from 2-point range. He has been a revelation this year. His shooting, his ability to get up, just insane 3-point frequency. But there had been a sort of slowdown for him. And you wondered, was it a fatigue issue? Was this sort of a little bit of a regression back for him? But for him to do what he did inside the arc, finishing with craft, I thought his ability to get downhill was really impressive, and his finishing, which has been something that he has not been elite at this year. It's been a struggle at times. He performed really, really well in that area, and the Knicks needed every one of those baskets, especially in the second half. It's just an incredible performance by him. And then Isaiah Hartenstein is sort of the other guy that you wonder where this team would be without him. It was another performance from him, 17 points, 9 rebounds, 4 steals. His defense was, as usual, impactful. In the first half, there was a few occasions where the Nets had 2-on-1 advantages. He's the one, and he's deflecting balls, and he's just disrupting some of the actions that they have at the rim. And his ability to move the ball and his chemistry with Brunson continues to be something that has been flourishing more and more as the season has gone on. And that, again, showed itself. Brunson did have 8 assists, so credit to him for at least adjusting in that way and generating some looks for his teammates. I believe it was 20 points on those 8 assists. So he's generating good looks for his teammates. A lot of that is him getting downhill, Hartenstein moving, and those two have that chemistry now where he can drop that ball off and they can generate a good look. So nice performance by Hartenstein again. And it's again one of those situations where I felt, is this going to be a game where the Knicks are just not going to generate enough looks? Because I was wondering, like, how are they going to adjust to how the Nets are guarding Brunson? And they did, to their credit, go to more of that guard to guard screening to try to get Claxton out of the action, because what the Nets were doing was basically just switching those pick and rolls. And Brunson, who has not been a great isolation player this year, certainly not as good as he was last year. It's a bit of a, I wouldn't call that a major concern, but it is something to make note of as we move along towards the end of the season into the playoffs. Like, he has not been a great isolation player. So it's just not a strong area for the Knicks to get efficient looks. And the Nets knew that, and they know Claxton is very good guarding on the perimeter. So they were more than happy to allow Brunson to pound the ball and try to get looks against one of the better defenders in the NBA. And the Knicks and Brunson especially just didn't adjust well enough to that in the first half. The second half, again, more guard-to-guard screening. There was one play actually where Claxton pre-switches that, and I tweeted about it because he just wanted to be in the action. So he switched with whoever the guard was, and they're trying to get into that play. He switches, and now Claxton is the switch man to isolate against Brunson, and he forced a miss. But for Brunson to go 7 of 24 and the Knicks to still perform well enough to win this game is a testament to this team and the ability to just do this time and time again, where you just don't think they have another level to get to. There isn't a lot of creation on this team. So if Brunson is not the guy doing it, then especially in the half court, it could be a slog. And, there was a few times where they got out in early offense and able to push the ball. I thought, as soon as I tweeted about Josh Hart just not having the verb today, just not really, you weren't seeing his name. His name wasn't being mentioned. You weren't really noticing his impact on the game, especially in that first half. And about, 2-3 minutes into that third quarter, and you were wondering, is this like a fatigue thing? Is there just something going on with him? But it just kind of flipped with him. He had that one transition layup, and beyond that, it was the offensive rebounding. It was the rebounding in general, the ability to push the ball up the court. Really good second half for him, especially in that fourth quarter. I thought he was a big key for the Knicks to pull this game away. And if there's any stat you can look at to sort of represent how dominant the Knicks were at the end of this game, it's the second chance points. I had looked it up. I think the Knicks were 26-3 edge and second chance points. That is a massive advantage. It is, what this team is, one of their main advantages when they go into these games is the second chance points. And to me, it was more of not just the finishing on the putbacks, it's the getting the rebound and then kicking it out for threes. Hartenstein had 2 of them in the first half. Hart had one late in the fourth quarter to it was kind of the nail in the coffin type play to kick it out for a 3. Big performance by him. The Knicks were just tougher than the Nets down the stretch. And then, we know the Nets lack creation. Mikal Bridges really isn't the guy that can lead an offense when things are bogging down in the half court and they need to get offense. He's not really the guy to do that when you get into him and into his dribble and force him to make plays one-on-one. The Nets went 11 straight misses in the fourth quarter at one point, 2 of 15 overall in the fourth quarter for the Nets until they brought in their reserves. The game had pretty much ended by then. So just say the Knicks are really smothering in that fourth quarter, dominating the game. And to me, to do that with Brunson performing the way he did is just a big time performance when he's been the guy to do that for this team the last 2 years. So to pick him up, to me, was a nice thing to see. And there was times in that second half where I felt better about some of the non-Brunson shots than the Brunson shots, which I can't remember a game where I felt that way, where I wanted someone other than Jalen Brunson to take that look. Part of that is not just the fact that Brunson wasn't handling how the Nets were defending him well. If Brunson is not generating good looks for himself in a one-on-one or a pick and roll situation, who's the guy to really do that on the Knicks with the current roster that they have right now? There was one play where I think it was Josh Hart pushed the ball and they got it, and Brunson got a transition 3 he was able to step into. It was a very good look, and that was, I think, the only one that he got that was generated by his teammates that I would consider like a really good, high quality look. So that's part of the situation that the Knicks are dealing with here, is that you have a guy like Brunson who is has been excellent, obviously as a pick and roll maestro, but really doesn't have another guy on his team currently until Julius Randle comes back to get him those looks that are just easier in the flow of the offense. And tonight was sort of the microcosm of him trying to take advantage of some switches that, maybe he thought against Claxton, and that's a mismatch in his advantage, but it really isn't. And Claxton is that good. And so if he's not going to generate high quality looks for himself, and again, credit to the Nets for defending him in that way, then who's going to do that? So this is for him. The Knicks really don't have that guy on the roster right now to consistently help Jalen Brunson get him good looks, allow him to get some easy catch and shoot threes, which to me, since Julius went down, that's been the biggest thing the Knicks have had to adjust to in terms of how they've had to change things, because they don't have that gravitational force allowing their 3-point shooters to sort of like relocate and play around the Julius Randle post-ups or paint touches. They don't have that right now. And when Brunson is not going well and he's not getting downhill with his pick and roll opportunities, he's not generating really good looks out of isolation. There's just not a lot for him to go off. The Knicks continue to move him off ball some, but I didn't think they generated really good offense with those as well. So the Nets are really aggressive on a lot of the DHOs the Knicks are running. They do a lot of zoom action for Brunson where you're setting a pin down on one side. He's going to come up for a dribble handoff. I thought the Nets did a good job of just staying aggressive, eliminating a lot of those plays and just staying attached to him. And the Nets have size. There's a lot of guys that can throw at him. That's not Nick Claxton, that, they're long wings that can play physical. I thought they gave him a lot of trouble. But Brunson is going to have these games. He's going to have situations where the shot isn't falling, especially without Julius. There's going to be times where these looks are not going to fall because they're not like the highest quality shot attempts. And you're going to need your role players to pick him up. And to me, it was DiVincenzo, it was McBride, it was Hartenstein, and it was, I thought in the second half, a really, for the most part, good performance from Josh Hart. Before we kick off the super chats, I do want to just sit with the performance from McBride a bit. He signed that extension, the 3-year contract, and there was a sort of belief here that, he's a rotation guard that is probably not a starter, and that all may be true. But if you just look at where he was to start the season and where he is now as a skilled ball player, it is night and day. There's times now where he can, the finishing with the left hand, he had one today on a transition opportunity, finishing with the left. His shooting out of the pick and roll, he had one pick and roll 3 where he just steps in, they're in drop. He's shooting right into that drop pocket and making it with confidence. His ability to get up high quality 3-point looks with frequency. 12 3-point attempts. Granted, he did play the whole game, but he is a guy that has shown to be highly aggressive. He's got a high release point, so he can get off looks that maybe a player of his size, 6'1", 6'2", that has a lower release point is probably not going to be able to generate. But his release point really benefits him in terms of getting up a ton of 3-point looks. And he continues to sort of add to his game. And there's the thing about him is like, is he a point guard? Is he not? Tonight or today, obviously he wasn't your point guard. He was your 2. He's going to have some on-ball reps, but not many. And he's just going to be more of a spacer, and he's going to defend the best player in the other team. And I thought his defense on Cam Thomas was as good as you can hope for. Cam is going to hit shots that are just, he's one of the better tough shot makers in the NBA. But I thought Deuce did a great job of just making everything tough. Cam, he scored his points, but they weren't efficient points. I don't think there wasn't one moment of that game where I thought that Cam Thomas was going to go off and have a game where he's going to lead a team back because he is on a heater. I thought Deuce McBride played him in a way that was going to prevent that. Yeah, some buckets he's going to score some because he is, like I said, that kind of shot maker. But there wasn't any moment where I thought that he can go off and get 35 points and steal a victory. And that's to me a testament to how, what I believe, and I'm sure what the Knicks believe in him as a defensive player. Just a really big time performance on both ends for him, and a guy that I'm, obviously there's going to be a ceiling, so we can look to maybe talk about that. But to me, that it's more of like looking at him as a key rotation piece for the next several years. And to me, that's gonna be a lot of point guard, a lot of backup point guard option. That's going to be a lot of two guard. That's going to be a lot of versatility. Like if you told me the Knicks can now go the next 3-4 years, and your backcourt, your point guard is Jalen Brunson, and your nominal backup is Deuce McBride. To me, if you factor in some growth for Deuce as a point guard, I think the Knicks would be very confident in that pairing for the next several years. To me, I feel personally very confident that he can be, you don't have to be a traditional point guard anymore if you have enough creation, around the other five on the court. So I think Deuce has a lot to grow into, but to me, the growth from the beginning of the season to now has been exponential. So big time performance by him. And then Dante DiVincenzo, I already talked about. There was that stretch when Julius and Anunoby first went down, and he was shooting 10 to 12 threes a night and making many of them, and just really elevating the ceiling that I didn't think he had. I don't think the Knicks thought they had, and you were wondering like, all right, how good is this guy? There's been again some regression here, but you always wonder, like, inside the arc. That's been my big concern with him. Like, is he able to generate enough offense if the 3-pointer isn't falling? I don't know what he ended up, at in terms of the 3-point percentage. He did miss a couple late with the game already decided. But to me, his 3-point shooting was hit or miss today. It was everything inside the arc that, to me, that was most impressive for him. And that is not something that he has been doing consistently this year. So that's just an area for him to sort of think about. Like, if you're going to be a starting two guard in this league, and you're going to be like a second or third option potentially on a good team, maybe fourth option, we'll see, how this team is built, but you're going to have to develop those other aspects to your game. And we've seen him develop as a 3-point shooter this year. The second piece for him is like, all right, how good can he be as a pick and roll operator? How good can he be as a finisher? Because those are things that have been a little spotty this year, but today they needed all the scoring inside the arc. And I mentioned it earlier, 8 of 11 from 2-point range. Every one of those was absolutely crucial to help the Knicks pull out this victory against the Nets. And then just wrapping up the shout outs here, Josh Hart, I when I sent the tweet about like where was the energy, the spirit for him, I probably should have thought a second for that, and maybe pull back on that post, because to me, as soon as I sent it, he had that fast break layup. And then beyond that, it was just like getting every loose ball, every offensive rebound, every defensive rebound, adding that energy that he continues to play with. He's the shooting. We know there's pieces, especially as a half court player, that are going to leave a lot to be desired. The Knicks played a double big lineup at one point. I mean, there's just a lot of spacing concerns currently for this Knicks team when you're missing some of your guys. But to me, like it felt like the energy that he played with in the midway through the third quarter until the end of the game helped jumpstart the team a little bit. He wasn't scoring like McBride, he wasn't scoring like DiVincenzo, and he wasn't the overall impactful player that Hartenstein was. But I thought his spirit, his ability to sort of change the flow of the game and just get into guys. I thought his defense on Schroeder at times was really good, just making things hard. The Knicks overall in the fourth quarter, I mean, they really try to get into the Nets. And, I'd have to look back at a second watch to see like what offense the Nets were actually running here. I mean, there was some pick and rolls, there was some, but to me, it was like a lot of like one-on-one and trying to generate things. The ball was moving side to side, but there was no advantages being created. And that's, to me, it's like, that is the NBA right now. You have to get 2 to the ball, and then you have to take advantage on the 4-on-3 on the back end. And then the Nets never did that in the fourth quarter. It made the Knicks defense, which was extremely aggressive, and the rotations were on point, but I thought they made it pretty easy with how they were going about their offense. So, credit to, the Knicks. Again, I mentioned I kind of buried the lead a little bit on that turnaround. I mean, they got in late off the West Coast trip. They didn't get in till yesterday around 5:00, I believe, and to play a 1:00 game after that West Coast trip. And maybe that sort of influenced how they performed a little bit in that first half. They weren't at their zippiest, they weren't at their most spry. to me, the defense in the fourth quarter was a complete level up. So maybe it took them a little bit to sort of get into the game. And if you've watched the Knicks for, as long as I have, and I'm sure, we've seen enough of these Sunday or these weekend games at 1 o'clock, there are just it's an interesting sort of game to play against a team that you've beaten twice. You've not, you're not, that's not going to generate a lot of intensity just on their own. So it's probably like not the worst case scenario that the Knicks didn't have the normal fight, but it's like Deuce McBride, I thought, that kept them, played, did enough in the first half to sort of keep them in the game, keep them within striking distance. And then when the Knicks tried to, get it to, level 10 on the defense, the Nets really couldn't generate any good looks. And that was a big key to winning this game. So again, for Jalen Brunson to go 7 of 24 and the Knicks to still win this game, and for the Knicks to pick him up and, they put him on their shoulders a little bit. And it's been obviously quite the opposite for now almost 2 years since he's come here and obviously changed the face of this team. He's changed the outlook, the culture, everything has sort of been altered by Jalen Brunson's presence. And for all his greatness, there's games where, his size is a limitation. There's going to be times where teams are going to throw enough size on him, and without his running mate and Julius Randle, things can get tough. And when he's not generating those looks for him, he needed someone else he needed multiple players on the Knicks to sort of pick him up. And it was really cool to see that the Knicks were able to do that and do it well and perform at that level and then win the game really going away. And it just felt like around the third quarter, early third, it just felt like this was going to be a game the Knicks are going to have to sweat out over the last, 3-4 minutes. And then you have, obviously, as I'm thinking, they have Cam Thomas on their team. He's renowned for just the tough shot making and the ability to just get off a look late in the game. I just kept thinking about, like, is this going to be the performance that we're going to have where, the Knicks are going to keep it too close for comfort, and then the Nets are going to hit a couple of threes late to sort of, pull the game away at the end. But the Knicks didn't allow that to happen. So their defense really put the stamp on this game and just made things extremely difficult. And led by, Isaiah Hartenstein, who we've talked about a little bit. But again, his defensive presence can't be understated here because, without OG Anunoby, there is not elite defensive talent on this Knicks roster. There's some really good defenders. We talked about McBride and Hart, and I thought DiVincenzo had a nice bounce back game defensively, playing that free safety role and generating steals, but it's not a elite defensive team when OG Anunoby is not there. A lot of the way the Knicks have been defending of late is that Hartenstein just seems healthy, as healthy as he's had looked all year. That's a big thing for him. Still seems to be on a minute restriction. I didn't love the Achua minutes. I don't think we saw him in the second half. Maybe someone can check on that. But it seemed like there was more Sims in the second half than Achua. So the Knicks are gonna have to figure this out because I didn't think that the minutes, other than Sims performing a little better in the second half, I didn't like the non-Hartenstein minutes at all for the Knicks bigs. But maybe they could start to stretch him out a little bit to get those minutes back to where they were early in the year. But also being cognizant of this Achilles has been something that has like flared up a couple of times this year. So maybe not the worst scenario for the Knicks to sort of massage this and keep his minutes lower than normal through the rest of the regular season or these next four now 3 games where the opponents are not elite, certainly, and they can maybe get a couple more of these wins before the schedule gets a little bit tougher.